Welcome to Courtney on Health on malcolmpresents.com, the new streaming platform heard exclusively on the internet. Anyway, welcome, guys.
Welcome. Hi. Hope everyone had a nice weekend.
Maxine,
yes, I'm going to go right
bow
now.
to you for the start.
Bow to me. All right. So hi, Courtney, and hi, Malcolm. Welcome to Courtney on Health, a Zoomcast podcast series about how to get through these COVID times, monkeypox times. I don't know anymore, with tips on nutrition and exercise given by Courtney Gravenese, registered dietitian with a Master of Science degree in nutrition and applied physiology. Courtney is an experienced nutritional and health consultant in the New York metro area and beyond, as we know now, and will help guide you on a path to wellness and health. So the topic will be kind of given away in this first quote here. Those with dementia are still people, and they still have character, and they're all individuals, and they're all unique, and they need to be interacted with on a human level. That quote was by actress Carey Mulligan, who obviously has dealt with someone in her life.
Just add a little levity to this. They're all on the Supreme Court.
Very, very funny. I'm on it. That's not levity. That's just insanity. But anyway, I know, getting back to the seriousness of this, I know how she must have felt in the situation that she must have been in, as I cared for my mom who had dementia for about over 10 years. It was difficult, but I did everything in my power to make her comfortable. Music was crucial, as was diet and movement. It is a tough issue to talk about, and today Courtney will give us some important information on diet, exercise, and dementia, and how you can improve your lifestyle to promote better brain health. So Courtney, can you start off with some information?
Absolutely. Well, welcome to both of you. Hope you had a nice weekend. And I don't know of anybody in my world who hasn't been affected by somebody who has some degree of dementia. I really don't. And I know that research is ongoing in terms of once somebody has been diagnosed with some type of dementia, including Alzheimer's disease. But what I'd like to embrace today are where we are with the research in terms of minimizing your risk of developing some type of dementia. And that could include anything from, memory loss up to Alzheimer's disease. And I will say it's tricky. We've talked about this before. It's really, really hard to do nutrition studies. And exercise studies for that matter, except that sometimes that can be a little bit, a little bit easier. So what we have to work with is the best of the data available to us today. And what we'll hear for anybody who's been following us and follows these shows, you're going to notice that there's a real common denominator in a lot of the anti-inflammatory foods that we've spoken about before, foods that are helpful for the heart. In fact, the mantra, what's good for the heart is going to be good for your brain, really, really rings true. So some of these foods you've heard of before, but again, what we're looking at is more specifically those foods within a category that appear to be particularly helpful. So have you guys heard of the MIND diet?
The Lyme diet?
The mind.
Diet. No.
The MIND mind. No, why don't you tell us about that? I don't know about it.
So I know we've spoken about both Mediterranean type diets and the DASH diet. So the DASH diet, just in case you're not familiar with it, stands for the dietary approach to stop hypertension. That's where the DASH comes in. If you can look at the MIND diet, as a mashup between the DASH diet, and a Mediterranean type diet. And what it stands for is basically those foods within those groups that can, minimize or slow the ability of neurodegenerative disease to form. So it's basically a mashup. It's not a brand new, trendy diet. Think of it more as, okay, we need to look at these two categories, these two diets, and really focus on those foods that, at least as of right now, appear to be particularly beneficial. So you'll hear more and more about it. So if you search for, if somebody's really interested in this, the research, if you look for, research in support of mind diet, it will literally use that word mind, because that's what it stands for. So you touched on it, Maxine. I wish we had an absolute understanding of what causes varying types of, memory loss and dementia. It's a really difficult disease, certainly for family, for the patient themselves, but for family members. And again, there are varying degrees. What we know is that, certainly we should all be eating well from infancy. But you'll notice that a lot of these studies that look at specifically, dementia type research and these diets looks at sort of midlife. So, around in their 40s. So it wouldn't surprise you to know that, they're following these individuals, of course, their lifetime, because in many instances, a lot of the dementia and Alzheimer's disease are picked up, not always, but 60s, 70s, and later on. So we look at lifestyle. You guys remember when we spoke about the blue zone diets? Community was so important. Like, what are you involved with? So yeah, it's diet and yeah, it's exercise, but what is your overall quality of life in terms of involvement, social life? That's one component of it. Diet, we'll talk about it the mind diet in a minute. Exercise. And it's so different than, I know Americans have their way of viewing exercise, and that's fantastic, but it doesn't have to be, this incredible, full throttle workout that many of us enjoy. That's great. But when we talk about exercise and minimizing the risks of this neurodegenerative disease, we're really talking about just activity level. So, movement, everything from Tai Chi to walking to, things that maybe we Westerners don't necessarily look at as exercise, but very much an Eastern philosophy in terms of getting out, getting in nature.
They did that at, my mom was in this really terrific adult day place in Mount Kisco, which is not there, unfortunately, because COVID kind of ended it. But they would, a lot of dementia patients there, and they would separate dementia patients from other patients, but they would also combine a lot of activities, and they did a lot with movement, just chair exercises.
Yes,
and breathing, and they had meditation, and then they had, have them doing puzzles and things to get their mind more active. And it was just an example of what should be out there for, when you're taking care of a parent and you adult day places. It's just something. And they had a dietitian on board also, which was, food was an important part of all of this. And so when you brought this up, it kind of brought me back to that. And
and music, you mentioned music. I know we're sort of going off, food here for a second, but in terms of, I don't think we've got a ton of data in support of music as a preventative measure, but certainly as a tool for helping with management of an individual with dementia, certainly is part of the mix.
It's absolute. It's absolute. My mom, I would just wait 1 second. I would play her favorites. I would play Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett and stuff, from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. It was just amazing how she knew all the words. And when they played it for in adult day, they knew all the words. They didn't know what they just ate an hour ago, but they knew all the words. And it was just, it was incredible. It was just incredible. So
as you guys know, I have experience with the I don't know whether it's dementia or Alzheimer. My brother just passed away after 5
Yeah.
years of being in a nursing home. And which I found horrible. I mean, I wish there was a way that he was able to stay in a private residence or, and sort of like around family, but that's simply not practical. Same thing with my mother. My mother's like 27 years ago. She
Yeah.
passed away and she became almost catatonic.
Oh, boy.
At the end, she couldn't talk, or all she did was stare.
Yeah.
But going back to the music, I don't know if you guys, well, I think you saw the Tony Bennett thing.
Yes, Lady Gaga. Yep.
Tony Bennett has Alzheimer's.
Yeah, and it was amazing because actually they had the excerpts of it on 60 Minutes yesterday. So if you want to see 60 Minutes, but when he came to singing, he didn't know his name. He didn't know where he was, but all of a sudden they started playing songs and he was word perfect. He did a duet with Lady Gaga and he came in the right moment and knew when she was going to come in.
It's really amazing. It really is. In terms of,
and as a matter of fact, going back to years ago with your brother Phil, from the Tokens, they had a show in Beverly Hills, and they do their music and they would talk in the audience. And Phil came out to say, "Hey guys, if I asked you what you ate for dinner last night, or the last movie you saw, it would take you 10 minutes to remember. But if I said, my friend the witch doctor, he taught me what to say. My friend the witch, and he said, and the whole audience went, ooh ee, ooh ah, ting tang, walla walla, bing bang, which means absolutely nothing. But everybody knew those words.
Right.
Oh my God. Yeah, there's so much there. But wouldn't it be nice if we could sort of get it on the front end and see what is there anything we can do to sort of just to slow the rates. So that's where the diet comes into play, in addition to these other risk factors that we spoke about, those things that you can absolutely have control over. Obviously genetics, we have no control over, but so diet, there are certain foods. There are 10 with the Mind Diet specifically. There are 10 foods that the Mind Diet focuses on to encourage specifically it's almost a prescriptive amount every day or every week you should have. So I want to just say, I think this is great. And I think with the research we have, certainly none of this is harmful. But I'm always cautious about, you must eat this way, in order, and we can't say for sure. There's an association with these foods. But just like I said at the top of our time, it's really hard to do nutrition studies. We can't say for sure, if you do this, you're absolutely going to, reduce your, but, again, no harm. So it's worth it. And they happen to be foods, like I said, that are going to be helpful for anti-inflammation and for your heart as well. So let's start at the top of this Mind Diet. There's, again, these foods that can help affect some positive brain changes. And they look at things by, for example, gray matter, response time to questions. So these are the kinds of tools they look at when they're looking at these individuals who are following this type of diet. So in particular, green leafy vegetables, and separate from other vegetables. So green leafy vegetables, we've spoken about these before. It could be arugula, it could be salad greens, it could be, kale greens. Doesn't matter what they are, but it's specifically those green leafy vegetables, 1 serving a day. So remember last week when I said, sort of swapping out a salad, it's basically a salad a day or a serving of these green leafy vegetables a day that they are encouraging. Separate from other vegetables. So that's going to include, and Lord knows we've spoken about these before, any other type of vegetable. So your cruciferous veg, like your broccoli, tomatoes, artichokes, asparagus, doesn't matter. As long as it is a non-starchy veg, 1 serving of non-starchy veg a day as well. Whole grains. So again, if we've done our heart health shows, we've done our fiber shows, any type of whole grain, oats, brown rice, think minimally processed. This happens to be farro, bulgur. They really want to encourage about 3 servings a day. So trying to mix that into the types of foods you might be having on a daily basis. we talk about a lot. I feel like I talk all the time about nuts and seeds on this show. These happen to be walnuts. Walnuts, if you remember, are the ones that are particularly high in the plant version of omega-3 fatty acid. But basically, they're not saying just walnuts. It's any type of nuts and seeds to snack throughout the day. So that should be the go-to snack, is what they're encouraging. Again, it could be walnuts, it could be pumpkin seeds, it could be cashews, it could be almonds. But the whole idea is to get those as your default snack option throughout the day. Beans and legumes, so lentils. These happen to be, chickpeas. Doesn't matter what the bean is, it doesn't specify which one, but that combination every other day, which basically is saying, how about we shoot for about 3 times per week, a serving of some type of legume or some type of bean. And that should be attainable. That's not a tall order. I think that's very reasonable when you think about a serving of beans or legume. We're really not talking much more than, depending on the size, 3/4 of a cup to 1 cup, as a serving size. So that's not very big at all. Fish, I happen to have canned fish here, which again, I want to encourage, please consider them as an option. Canned salmon, canned tuna fish. I know fish is expensive. I bought salmon yesterday in a grocery store and like my head nearly popped off. I get it. It's all very expensive. Don't rule out any of the canned, particularly fatty fish. So options, they really encourage, think that Mediterranean diet. Again, this is not inconsistent with the American Heart Association recommendation of fish at least 1 time per week. So again, any type of fish, it's not specifying fatty fish necessarily, but for that extra benefit, heart health, you may want to try and get a serving of those oily fishes in the mix.
What about, quickly, I'm sorry to interject, but what about, if you don't do fish, what about fish oil or krill oil? Are any of those recommended if you can't do?
So
I
no
don't
fish at all?
like fish. I don't like fish.
Fish at all. I will be honest with you. I know that we always hear, food is, and it is best from foods. But if you do not eat that particular food for whatever reason, it has to come from someplace else. So although you can get your protein needs met by poultry and turkey, Maxine, for sure, and that's the next food in the category, that DHA, that's very specific to the plant versions I just mentioned, like in nuts and seaweed, but it's very specific to oily fish. So if you're not going to get it in your oily fish, I believe the next reasonable recommendation would be in supplementation. Of course, you want to make sure it's okay with your doctor, but generally that 1,000 gram to 2,000 gram tops a day of a good quality fish oil, particularly if you don't eat or don't like fatty fish, or a large amount of those plant versions of omega-3s. The only option is really to get it through supplementation. So I think that it's a very reasonable option. Just make sure you know what you're getting. Go with a reputable brand. Look for ones that have that third-party testing on it. And again, that your physician and there is no any of the medications that you might be on, and that would be a good second step. So
Great.
for sure.
Thanks for that.
So so poultry is so chicken, turkey, whatever fowl that you like. They're basically recommending 2 times per week, so 2 servings. Remember, a serving size is 4 ounces, so think this deck of cards. And then berries. So different fruits. When we're always making those recommendations, eat veg. This is much like they were saying, those green leafy veg, we want a very specific amount of those today. What you're looking for is something in particular about the compounds in blueberries and in strawberries. If you were us talking about the anthocyanin, that beautiful, gorgeous blue color, the blueberries, there's something specific to that's setting them apart from not only other berries, other fruits like apples, oranges. Now, not to say those fruits are not good for you. I'm simply presenting what the research seems to indicate about the berries. So this is, again, all fruits are fantastic. They each bring a little bit something different to the table, but there is something specific about these berries that I find particularly helpful with overall brain health. And they're recommending, the diet recommends just several servings easily throughout the week. They say that should be, in addition to the nuts and seeds, that should be your default snack, are these blueberries, strawberries combination. Olive oil. Again, we've heard about this with, heart health diets. It's used liberally in Mediterranean type diets, whatever type Mediterranean diet you're following, using this as a dipping, on your salads, using it to maybe dip bread in, using it as a finishing oil. There is no limit. So they're just saying use it liberally, and there's specifically olive oil in nature. So the better the olive oil you can afford, I would say go for it. So again, I know it can be expensive. You're looking for extra virgin olive oil, not light olive oil. There's a difference. And again, try and work that into the budget if you can. And maybe use things like, if you are going to fry foods and things like that, save that for maybe the avocado, canola, grapeseed oil. Grapeseed oil is a little expensive too, but using this olive oil in the least cooked way appears to be one of the best ways. And they are encouraging that, again, liberally. And you'll notice, and
I noticed that.
I got to take care of kiddos this afternoon and get in my car. So although I would throw this back,
I'll come over. I'll bring sparkles. Leave it on the porch. Okay.
It has its own food group. You got to love a diet that has wine as its own food group. So much like the Mediterranean diet, although you don't hear about it as much in the DASH diet, it's 2 drinks a day tops for men, 1 drink a day for women, and usually that's going to be about size-wise. So visually, that is about the size of it. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but basically, when you're talking about a glass of wine, you're talking about roughly 4 ounces. It's about a half of a cup. So that should give you sort of a specific amount. More is not necessarily, recommended for obvious reasons. If you do not drink, there are other ways to get these compounds. We've talked about this. Any of these, if you think grape juice might have it. So that resveratrol, the antioxidants in there. And what's missing in here?
More fun.
What's that?
Wine is much more fun than grape juice.
I'm with you, so with you. But
Yeah, we're all on that page. We're all on that page. So, what is there anything else in the food area? Because I'm concerned. I'm just interested also in the movement part of this, and also the sleep part, and also, I'm sorry, water, hydration. That's something I think that's key in that too. Is that part of the in terms of Alzheimer's? Is it recommended?
It's not, I will say it's not part of what's recommended in the MIND diet. I think that for most of us, walking around dehydrated, remember, you think about your body's tissues, including your brain, it's comprised of water. So if you're constantly walking around in a dehydrated state, I would remember, if you ever either of you guys have ever gotten to the point where you're so dehydrated, you start becoming combative or delusional. I mean, there's a reason for that. So to me, even though it doesn't suggest that in the data, I have to believe that because it is so important for so many bodily functions, staying well hydrated has to be key to almost any meal plan or any diet plan that we're following.
Yeah, what I've been reading as I've been getting into my later years is that most seniors are dehydrated. They don't drink enough water because they wait till they're thirsty to drink. But at our later ages, you don't realize that you're thirsty. The body doesn't tell you. So you almost have to constantly drink even though you don't feel thirsty.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but that's hard to do. So there's before one has been diagnosed with some type of dementia, that's super important. And we've spoken about hydration before, on the show. And in particular, if you yourself or or you're caring for somebody who is elderly, with or without dementia, encouraging that hydration is so key. So, and sometimes it's going to be help it out with a little bit of flavor. Taste is affected as we get older, and things don't taste as good, which is why sometimes people who are elderly are putting on a lot more salt on their foods because things don't taste the same. So help them out in the hydration department and maybe you can dilute some juice down. Maybe you can put a splash of maybe crushed up some fruit in there to give it some flavor. Maybe they like carbonation, lemon, lime, pineapple pieces in there. Anything that will encourage them to drink is going to be helpful. Some like herb teas with some maybe, like additional herbs like mint or basil in it. That might encourage, them to drink a little bit more. Meet them where they are and to help them, because I get it. Some folks just don't like plain water, and no matter what you do, they're not going to drink it. So you got to help it out a little bit.
Yeah, I like the bubbly water, or a seltzer we used to call it, or
Yeah.
club soda.
It's still called seltzer.
Still
And
called-
yeah. What
And
about
then-
what about movement and then / sleep?
I don't think they have any specific data about movement. You mean as a preventative measure, Maxine?
Yeah, in terms of Alzheimer's overall, well, getting a person who was diagnosed, I mean, diet's important, but also, exercise. Or movement, and of course, sleep as well. Because I see in
Right.
certain studies that they do mention that it's not the
Right.
mind diet. That's a different thing, which I don't even know about, but I'm just wondering.
Right. So I think generally, unless somebody has a significant medical issue or history that would prevent them, and this is somebody diagnosed with dementia or not, from exercising, it can only help. Now, the limitations might be that this individual they barely get out of bed, or maybe they're not getting out of a chair, like you mentioned. So anything is better than zero. So even if they're in a chair, and I think group involvement, they try to do sort of group exercise to encourage rather than one-on-one, because if you see somebody else doing it, you might be more likely to participate. But there's lots you can do to stay active in a chair. We've done some, the last time we did some, physical activity exercises, standing and sitting, lots you can do in a chair to increase some movement.
I know for dementia patients, they do a lot of exercise in pools.
Right, but that's going to require a lot of, first, I think that's fantastic, but you have to have a pool. That's going to require a lot of manpower, woman
Right, but then
power.
this is when you're hospitalized already for dementia, whether you're.
Yeah.
Oh, so they have-
Just before the time runs out, there's a very good book called Stress Free. I forget, by Sanjay Gupta.
He talks about dementia there.
It talks about dementia. Talks about, he goes at the beginning of the book. He talks about what they see on the brain, and the things and the different parts of the brain that get screwed up with dementia. But he also talks about what you were saying about the diet. He said the two top things was diet and exercise.
Yeah.
So that seems to be the way it is, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then Max, and I know we have to go. I'm getting the
Right.
hook again from Max, but sleep is so important. I mean, if you look at it in terms of just its role in inflammation, lack of sleep creates a more inflamed state. So there's the preventative side of things, Maxine, and then there's sort of helping the patient or the individual, your family member who's been diagnosed with some type of dementia, to help them sleep. Now, there may be a medication component to that, but in all likelihood, it's going to involve a multifaceted approach and not just medication to help them get their circadian rhythm. A lot of it is their circadian rhythm is off, and helping them get back in touch with that clock again would be helpful.
Oh, by the way, the name of the book is Stay Sharp. Or Keep
Okay,
Sharp.
well, I got to plug this too, because Courtney, we both have articles in Hamlet Living magazine, and Courtney has an article called Fill Up on the Sun, Protective Foods, and stuff we've talked about. So now we got her in magazines.
There we go.
This is all-
Shout out. It's going to be called Stroll Chappaqua.
Right,
For the
it's
next issue, so look for
Hamlet
it.
Living,
Where do
and
us Angelinos get that? I get a copy of the articles.
we can.
Is there a way?
I don't know if it's online. We'll have to see. And I worked on an article about buttonhook. 10 things to know
Woo!
about buttonhook forest. So so we're trying to keep ourselves busy. Malcolm, you have to write an article. You're the only one. You know what's going on. So- but
I'm
there's
not
lots
sure.
there's lots more to talk about. I think we're gonna have to do another part of this
Yeah,
because
actually, my dear, you have to do an exit.
I am doing an exit.
We
like,
have 30 seconds left.
okay, I'll do it quickly. So thanks for joining us for Courtney on Health. To get more info, follow Courtney on her Facebook page, which is Courtney on Health, on Instagram at CLG Wellness. Visit her website, CourtneyGravities.com. For more shows, go to MalcolmPresents.com and theManyShadesOfGreen.com. Courtney on Health, smart sound nutrition, strong, safe fitness, and we'll catch you again next time.
I'll leave it for you on the stoop, Maxine.
I'm coming. I'm walking the dog. It's raining, but I'm coming. I'll tell you.
That's
Bye,
a
stay
good,
well.
a wine, a salad, and smoked salmon.
Okay, I'll have
That's it.
wine and no salmon, but the salad with some little krill pills on the side. All right.
Anyway, guys, you have a great week. And
Take care.
Bye.
I don't think we're gonna do the show next Monday, but we'll do it during that week because it's July 4th weekend.
Okay, we'll connect.
All right,
Okay,
we'll
kids.
figure it out.
Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.